I knew something was off the second I walked into that town hall. You could smell the cheap cologne of corporate ego bouncing off the glass walls. First Friday with a new CEO, and the guy already had a PowerPoint named Excellence and Efficiency. That should have been my warning. But no, I sat there like a good soldier, coffee going cold, thinking maybe this would be one of those boring rah-rah sessions with bullet points about synergy and mission alignment. Instead, he clicked to slide 3 and froze the room. My team pulled comp data across departments. He said, tapping his little remote like he was hosting a game show. Let's talk about outliers. And then, there it was. My full compensation, blown up on the screen like a damn mugshot. $345,000, it read in bold Helvetica. Approx. 55% above industry benchmark. Underneath, a smaller line, client strategy, individual contributor. People shifted in their seats. One guy coughed and pretended to adjust his laptop, but I caught the flicker of a smirk. Another exec, newish, probably trying to look cool, let out a low chuckle. It wasn't even subtle. And this clown, this suit from Boston with a McKinsey haircut and the emotional depth of a TED Talk, just stared at me across the table and said, "We'll be reevaluating alignment between value delivered and compensation across leadership." I didn't blink, didn't argue, I just closed my laptop slowly, like I was tucking a corpse in for bed. Because what do you say to a man who thinks your worth can be summed up in a bar graph? Who thinks calling you out publicly in a room full of sharks will prove something other than his own insecurity? I've been here before. Different office, same cologne, and hey, before we go any further, if you're listening to this and 97% of you are, statistically, without hitting that subscribe button or liking the video, maybe fix that. It keeps stories like this coming, and trust me, you'll want to see how this one ends. Anyway, I didn't storm out or throw a fit. I let him finish his little slideshow. Buzzwords and ego slides. Operational recalibration, headcount value matrix, long-term cost harmony. It was like watching a guy build a guillotine out of LinkedIn quotes. I sat there, still, my mind already working 10 steps ahead. I'd been at that company 8 years. 8 years of fixing problems before legal saw them. 8 years of saving accounts from churn, smoothing fire drills that never made it to a ticket, patching holes before anyone upstairs even smelled smoke. Half the clients didn't even know they were one Slack message away from going nuclear, because I kept it quiet. That's the value he couldn't measure. Silence, continuity, trust. When the meeting wrapped, I walked straight back to my office. No eye contact, no words. I didn't need to defend my value to a man who just publicly announced he didn't understand it. My badge still worked. The coffee in the corner was still warm. The photos on my desk still smiled. But the air had changed, like a breaker had flipped. By noon, I'd cleared my personal files. I forwarded 2 transition documents, flagged 1 renewal with notes. Didn't even leave a trail dramatic enough for gossip. Just cleaned up, emptied out, and walked to my car like it was a normal Friday. Except I wasn't coming back. I left a note on my desk that just said, "Team, thanks for everything. You know where to find me." That was it. No speech, no drama, no box-hugging, tearful exit. If they wanted a scene, they'd be waiting a long damn time. I'm not a theater kid. I'm a strategist. And if there's one thing 8 years in client fire suppression teaches you, it's this. Exits are louder when you whisper. The office was quiet anyway. Most people had no clue what happened in that town hall. And the ones who did? They avoided eye contact, like my resignation was contagious. I don't blame them. Watching someone get humiliated publicly makes everyone nervous. It's the corporate version of a drive-by shooting. You see a body drop and you check if it's wearing your shoes. I texted one person. Just one. Kai. "You still over at Iverson Group?" Him. "Yup. Why?" Me. "Might be time for a conversation." The second those 3 dots popped up on his reply, I felt it in my chest. A slow, quiet click. The kind of click you hear when a door unlatches somewhere in the dark. I drove home without turning on music. I wanted to hear the silence, let it wrap around me like a weighted blanket. My phone buzzed again while I was at a red light. Kai already had a calendar link and a welcome packet ready. They'd apparently tried to poach me 3 times in the last 2 years, but I was loyal back then. I had unfinished work. I believed in the team. I believed I was building something. Turns out I was. I just didn't know it was theirs. At home, I poured myself one glass of wine. Not a celebration, not grief either, just calibration. I opened the termination packet HR sent and scrolled past the usual fluff. Non-disparagement, final payroll date, benefits cut off. Then I hit it. The NDA clause. There it was, tucked neatly in paragraph 5, line 2, non-compete void if termination is not for cause. I underlined it with a Sharpie and laughed. Actually laughed. See that clause? I wrote it. 2 years ago, during a policy overhaul, our then HR director let me review it before legal did. She wanted a second set of eyes for fairness, since I worked closest with our enterprise clients. I'd added the language myself, said it was important for ethical clarity. She signed off. Legal rubber-stamped it. No one ever questioned it. They just handed me the keys to their vault. I didn't need revenge. I needed clarity. And now I had it. No contractual leash, no ethical binds, no reason to stay quiet. They didn't just fire the woman who knew where every client body was buried. They handed her a shovel and said, "Good luck." So I packed it all away. The branded mugs, the plaque from some team award that never meant much, the framed photo of my dog in a branded hoodie they gave us one Christmas. That photo came with me. Everything else? Left behind, including the version of me that ever gave that place the benefit of the doubt. They thought they'd saved $345K. They had no idea what it was buying them. Monday morning, I walked into Iverson Group without so much as a hair out of place. No LinkedIn update, no life chapter post with a cheesy beach photo, no passive-aggressive quotes about knowing your worth. I wasn't here for fanfare. I was here to work. And maybe, just maybe, to watch the world I used to keep standing start to wobble without me. My new badge still smelled like printer ink. White laminate, gold lettering, same job title, new firm, strategic enterprise liaison. But with a bump in salary, a signing bonus that made me smile in the car, and a quiet little clause in my contract that gave me full autonomy on legacy client acquisition. Legacy meaning clients from my last job. I spent the morning walking the halls. I knew the building. Same architecture firm designed both offices. I knew the layout, the faces, the systems. I even spotted 2 guys from my old vendor team, now wearing Iverson polos and pretending not to notice me. I nodded once. They nodded back, eyes wide. No one said anything. We didn't need to. By lunch, I was in a glass-walled conference room with Kai and the VP of Strategic Ops, showing them a 3-tab spreadsheet I'd built over the weekend. Tab 1, priority client list with renewal dates. Tab 2, risk index for churn likelihood. Tab 3, contact strategy with notes only someone with years of unspoken rapport could compile. Jesus, Kai whispered. They're going to bleed. I didn't smile. I just turned the screen so the VP could see. They already are. What they didn't realize back at my old company was that the glue wasn't the tools or the dashboards or the quarterly decks. It was the late-night texts. The, "Can you jump on a call before this goes to legal?" moments. The, "My boss is losing it. Can you just explain it to him?" Hail Marys. It was trust, built in silence, client by client, year by year, and now it was mine. Back at my old office, the client services inbox was starting to swell. I knew the pattern. One of my former clients, usually polite, patient, endlessly loyal, would have emailed something like, "Hi team, after much internal review, we've decided not to renew. Please consider this formal notice." And then it would snowball. 8 notices by end of day. 3 were clients I'd personally saved from canceling at least once, some more than once. One had nearly walked after a billing fiasco 2 years ago, and I stayed on the phone with their CFO for 5 hours until it was sorted. I didn't do it for applause. I did it because it was my name on the line. Well, it's not anymore. I got a ping from Kai later that evening, just a screenshot of a Slack message someone had leaked to him from inside my old company. Does anyone know why? Redacted just terminated their contract? Mara's gone, but they've been stable for years. WTF is going on? Then another. Need an emergency client services huddle. Multiple churn alerts flagged. The CEO, still coasting. I could imagine him brushing it off in some all-hands message. Natural attrition. Shifting market dynamics. Room for exciting new client relationships. That's the thing about men like him. They think loyalty is luck. that retention is just inertia. They think clients stay because they have no better option. But I was the better option. And now, so is my new firm. I didn't gloat, didn't crack champagne. I went home, took my dog for a walk, and slept like a stone. Because this wasn't the win yet. It was just the starting bell. 15 days. That's how long it took to go from smug executive posturing to full-blown corporate tailspin. The first wave was 8, then 12 more. By the end of the second week, they'd racked up 42 terminations. Quiet exits, most of them. Cordial, respectful, signed PDFs that hit the inbox like bricks through a window. The internal Slack leaks started trickling in Monday morning. An old colleague, still stuck in the sinking ship, forwarded them to Kai with a single message. Y'all broke something. One screenshot showed the VP of Client Experience typing in a thread at 7:14 a.m. Why are they all pulling out? These are long-term accounts. Another reply from the Director of Retention. None of this was flagged in Q3. Something changed. They're not even asking for discounts. They're just done. Then someone dropped the real kicker. Has anyone reached out to Mara? No response. And the CEO, Mr. Efficiency and Excellence, he was too busy spinning a narrative to hear the foundation cracking under him. A staff-wide email went out that afternoon. Subject line, client movements and market shifts. He wrote, client activity is within historical parameters. Natural churn happens during transitional periods, especially as we refine our operational models. That sentence might as well have been printed on a tombstone. What he didn't understand, what none of them understood, was that retention wasn't an algorithm. It wasn't the quarterly NPS score or some CRM color-coded dashboard. It was trust. And I had earned it in 1,000 quiet, invisible ways. Like that time I rerouted a failing integration for a financial services client over a weekend so their Monday launch wouldn't tank. Or when I caught an SLA violation on a healthcare contract 6 hours before legal would have breached it. Or when I flew out last minute to sit in a windowless conference room with a logistics team who felt like no one at our company even remembered they existed. None of that ever hit a slide deck, but the clients remembered. And now they were following me. Iverson's boardroom was quiet too, but in a different way. Kai and I kept the lights dim. We weren't cheering. We weren't rubbing it in. We were tracking. Every defection came with a conversation, me reaching out, them saying things like, "What? We always figured you were the one keeping it all together. We never felt heard until you got involved. We're not taking chances with whoever replaces you." It wasn't just ego fuel, it was data. Cold, clean validation that the systems my old company bragged about were hollow, without the person who knew the systems inside and out, who knew the people, knew how to anticipate the chaos before it arrived. 42 clients gone, some worth 7 figures annually. Iverson's legal had already onboarded half. I was building a reintegration team before the second Friday ended. Back at the old firm, they were busy running triage drills on Zoom, panic-laced meetings titled Strategic Retention Sync, or Churn Firewall Workshop. They started sending apology emails to clients, tone-deaf, robotic, full of "we hear you" and "our commitment remains strong." But nobody hears you when you wait until the funeral to start sending flowers. I didn't respond to the messages trickling into my personal inbox. Not yet. I saw them. A few from execs who wouldn't even meet my eye in meetings before. Some asking how I was doing. One even offered to grab coffee sometime and catch up. They were trying to understand how this all happened. How a single person walking out could trigger a pipeline collapse. But I didn't trigger it. I just stopped holding the damn thing up. The first sniff of blood came from legal, not panic, yet. Just that sickly, corporate sort of curiosity that kicks in when the numbers stop making sense and someone up the food chain starts asking questions with phrases like material impact and potential liability. The board wanted a formal loss impact assessment, numbers, names, dollar signs. And suddenly, everyone who'd treated me like wallpaper was trying to figure out exactly what the hell I'd done all these years. From what Kai forwarded me, bless his leaky contacts, they'd started combing through client contracts by day 16. Legal opened up a spreadsheet and saw column after column with my name in the strategic liaison field, usually followed by a note like, "Do not transition without 90-day warm handoff," or "Account prefers continuity with MC." That was me. MC Mara Colton. The three-letter insurance policy they hadn't realized they were canceling in front of a live studio audience. Then came the real kicker. The CFO messaged the CEO privately, sloppy of him not deleting the chat thread before it leaked. "Did you authorize her departure formally?" No reply. He asked again, 5 minutes later. "Because if she was terminated without cause, we might have exposure." And there it was, the first wobble in the executive armor. Not because they cared, not because they realized what they'd done, but because the fallout had a paper trail and I'd left plenty of receipts. HR, meanwhile, started digging through the older funding documentation. That's where it got interesting. See, back in 2021, we secured a major round from a boutique fund that required a stability clause, guaranteeing executive-level continuity for top client-facing roles. And guess who had helped write the retention protocols to satisfy the investors? Me. The clause was buried on page 14 of the capital side letter, language I'd helped draft, sitting in a windowless room with our then CFO and two partners from the fund. I remembered it because I fought to include a line that nobody thought mattered at the time. In the event of involuntary separation of strategic personnel, fund reserves may be subject to reevaluation and/or retraction at the fund's discretion. Translation? Fire me without cause, and the investors could legally pull the plug, or at least renegotiate terms. They hadn't just fired a woman who knew how to hold clients together. They'd fired the woman who helped tie the damn money together, too. Kai sent me a screenshot from a panicked internal call summary. Action item. Confirm whether Mara's NDA plus non-compete were active at time of exit. Action item. Determine investor sensitivity to clause 14B in 2021 side letter. Action item. Legal to draft contingency comms if press inquiry arises. Contingency comms. They were already bracing for press. And I sat there reading it all, one eyebrow raised, dog curled up next to me on the couch, half a pad of notes in my lap. Satisfaction is a strange thing. It doesn't come with champagne or loud music. It comes quiet. It comes when people who dismissed you now scramble to understand how they misread you so completely. But beneath the satisfaction, there was something else. Fury. Not because they let me go, but because I had to leave for them to finally notice what I built. Because for 8 years, I held the seams of that company together with late nights and second chances, and the only time my name ever hit a slide deck was when some jackass used it as a punchline. Now, my name was everywhere, but only as a footnote to a mistake, and I hadn't even gotten started yet. The board Zoom was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp, and from what I heard, the CEO came in grinning like he'd just closed $1 billion deal. Buttoned up, buzzwords locked and loaded, probably practicing his strategic optimism voice in the mirror beforehand. He launched into his performance with all the charisma of a busted toaster oven. "We're adjusting our hiring trajectory to bring in top-tier sales leadership," he said, pacing in front of some smug slide deck titled Post-Churn Expansion Strategy. There was a chart. Of course there was, showing a projected rebound over Q2 and Q3, completely fictional, like watching someone draw a parachute on a napkin after leaping out of a plane. A few board members nodded politely. Some stared blankly. One sipped coffee like it was bourbon. And then came the voice. The lead investor, Mr. Anders Whitmore, unmuted his mic with a crisp click that reportedly cut through the call like a rifle crack. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't blink. "Our continued commitment," he said flatly, "was explicitly contingent on Mara Colton's active employment. See the second page of the side letter, subsection C." Silence. No one spoke. No coughs. No chair squeaks. Just a digital stillness so dense you could feel people checking if they were on mute. Whitmore kept going. I'm quoting directly. "In the event of her involuntary departure, the undersigned reserves the right to suspend, retract, or renegotiate funding commitments as outlined in paragraph 6. He paused, then added, as if reading a recipe. "This clause was drafted by Mara Colton, your former strategic enterprise liaison, the one you publicly dismissed 2 weeks before renewal season." The CEO's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The man who'd stood in front of my comp slide like he was unveiling a magic trick now looked like he'd swallowed a thumbtack. Legal froze. Their counsel leaned forward, fingers mid-keystroke, eyes darting across documents like he was trying to defuse a bomb he didn't know existed until 10 seconds ago. Someone on the board cleared their throat, quietly. Then Whitmore said it. The line I'd been waiting for without even knowing it. "I don't think you understood what she was holding together." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Because that clause? That wasn't just legal fluff. That was insurance. For me, yes. But more importantly, for them. I'd put it in years ago when we were negotiating the Series B after a heated debate where one of the VCs questioned how reliant we were on individual contributors. I wrote that clause to shut him up, said it was a safeguard, said it wouldn't need to be used. Until it did. They had fired the person who wrote the contingency plan, without reading the contingency plan. Now, here they were, blinking on a Zoom call while the man with the money reminded them exactly who held the pen that day. The CEO tried to recover, mumbled something about oversight and realignment. But you can't outspin a signature. You can't PR your way around a signed clause tied to a 7-figure funding hook. Justice doesn't always come in a grand slam. Sometimes it lands like a fax machine whirring to life at the worst possible moment. Calm, mechanical, undeniable. By the end of the call, Whitmore had instructed legal to prepare a formal pause on funding pending a full board review. The CEO's face had turned that peculiar shade of pale where the skin seems to forget how to exist. He had tried to humiliate me with a slide. I left behind a sentence that was about to cost him $20 million. The funding suspension hit like a pipe burst in the ceiling. First a drip, then a downpour. By noon, the investor's office had filed a formal hold notice citing breach of continuity clauses and failure to disclose contractual risk exposure. That's how they phrased it. Failure to disclose. Not oops, not mistake. That kind of language doesn't come with a warning shot. It comes right before the axe. I wasn't watching in real time. I didn't need to. Kai came into my office, quietly slid his laptop around, and there it was. An email chain forwarded from someone inside their board thread. Legal scrambling. The CFO floating a temporary bridge plan with projected cash reserves that even their own finance lead flagged as untethered from reality. The CEO? Radio silent. The silence didn't last. That evening, 2 of their largest clients, both of whom I'd personally ushered through nightmare integrations and kept from jumping ship more than once, leaked the story. Nothing loud, just whispers to industry contacts, murmurs at strategy dinners. They let her go? No warning during renewal season? And now funding's frozen? It moved faster than anything their marketing team could plug. Reputation rot doesn't wait for memos. By Wednesday, 5 more clients had submitted termination paperwork. 3 of them didn't even wait for a call. They cited internal confidence concerns and vendor instability. I didn't reach out to them. I didn't need to. They were following the quiet trail I had left in trust, not breadcrumbs. Then the board got loud. They issued a formal demand for written explanation from the CEO and executive team, not a call, not a meeting. Written. Because at that point, everyone wanted something they could frame later when the blame got passed around like communion. And then the messages started. Not from the execs. Not the ones who smiled in meetings but never learned how to pronounce my last name. No, these came from the real ones. My old team. People who stayed late with me to fix a rollout gone sideways. People I coached through impossible calls with impossible clients. People who knew that when things went quiet, I was already working the fix. One message. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve how that went down. You held more together than they ever saw. Another. If I end up where you are someday, I'd consider that a win. And one more, short and simple. They're scrambling. All I can think is, what if they just shut up and listened? I didn't respond to most of them right away. Not because I didn't care, because I did. Too much. I sat there, reading each one like a note left on a gravestone, knowing these people were still inside a system collapsing under the weight of its own arrogance. I didn't gloat. I didn't screenshot and share. I didn't send a single laughing emoji. I just added their names to a list on my desk, the ones worth pulling when the time was right. Because grace isn't silence. It's knowing you could destroy someone and choosing instead to build what comes next. But let's be clear, grace doesn't mean mercy. I wasn't shielding anyone anymore. They broke the contract. They burned the bridge. I just let the fire keep moving forward. By Friday, someone leaked the side letter clause to a trade journal. Just a headline, no names. Exec termination triggers funding freeze at major SaaS firm. I didn't call the reporter. I just watched as the story caught wind and finally, they started realizing who'd actually been holding the rope the whole time. The email came in like a stray draft of warm air before a storm. Subject line, board proposal, reinstatement terms. Sent from the general counsel's office, but you could smell the panic through the punctuation. It was dressed up in all the right legalese: good faith, reputational remediation, constructive resolution. Translation? They wanted me back. The attached PDF was 9 pages long. 9. They could have just written, "We're screwed and we finally get it." Would have saved time. They offered everything. My old title, Executive Director of Strategic Client Operations, plus a promotion track, expanded budget, and full authority over enterprise retention strategy. They even dangled a restorative equity package, which sounded like a makeup gift from a cheating ex who just learned you're dating better. But the line that really sealed their desperation was buried on page 7. We're prepared to issue a formal public statement acknowledging Mara Colton's strategic contributions and past oversight regarding her departure. A public apology from men who once called my comp package excessive in a room full of peers, from a board that let me be reduced to a slide deck statistic. I read that line twice, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to feel it sink in. I didn't reply right away. I went for a walk, called Kai, took my time. Then I wrote my answer. It wasn't a no, not exactly. It was a counteroffer. 1 sentence followed by a bullet list. In lieu of reinstatement, I propose the following resolution to close this chapter cleanly and without further reputational damage to your executive team. 15 client account histories. That's what I asked for. Complete transfer of service data, key preferences, internal documentation, pain points, SLA records. Everything I had ever touched, smoothed, or patched together for those accounts while they sat sipping coffee and assuming retention meant clicking renew in a dashboard. In exchange, total silence. I wouldn't comment to press, I wouldn't confirm the clause, I wouldn't feed the whispers. It was clean, professional, documented, and far more merciful than they deserved. Kai read the draft and said, "Damn, that's elegant." I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted control. And this was it. Me standing not on a scorched bridge, but on a well-lit exit ramp that I paved myself. Their legal team responded in 45 minutes. Terms accepted. Transfer in process. Thank you for your professionalism. No fanfare, no fight, just compliance. Because by then, they understood something they never had before. I don't bluff. I build. Quietly, thoroughly, and with leverage they never see until it's too late. And now those 15 clients, they were mine, again. This time, with full histories, clean slates, and no risk of being handed off to someone who'd confuse empathy for inefficiency. I didn't post about it, didn't update my job title, didn't leak a thing. Because real power doesn't need to raise its voice, it just makes the other side go quiet. The final call was scheduled for 4:30 p.m. on a Thursday, the kind of meeting slot reserved for things you don't want to make tomorrow's headlines. I wasn't invited, of course. I didn't need to be. Kai was. He kept me looped in with clipped Slack messages and quiet looks from across the Iverson conference table, where we were mid-rollout for a client I'd personally brought over from the wreckage. According to him, it started stiff, flat affect, board members muted, cameras off, legal present but silent. The CEO logged in 5 minutes late and tried to pretend it was a scheduling glitch, but everyone knew. You could smell the death in the dial tone. The chair started with a single sentence. "We're calling this to vote." No warm-up, no preamble. The restructuring plan had already circulated privately, and it wasn't a proposal, it was a sentence. The CEO was to be transitioned effective immediately. No exit interview, no thank you speech, not even the dignity of a corporate euphemism, like pursuing other opportunities. Just transitioned, like bad cargo. Investor funds would resume, but under revised terms. 3 key positions were now board-approved appointments. 2 other execs were placed on performance review under external audit, and the company's funding agreement would be amended to include quarterly compliance reports on all retention-linked roles. No trust, just terms. The document was screen-shared at 4:47 p.m. The chair signed with a stylus, his signature etching slowly across the screen like a slow-moving guillotine. And with that, it was done. The same hand that had waved off my contributions as above market just greenlit a financial collar that would choke the company's leadership into submission for the next 5 years. Assuming they made it that far. I didn't celebrate. I didn't toast. At that exact moment, I was 3 blocks away in a quiet office with no glass walls, briefing a new team on the onboarding sequence for 3 fresh enterprise accounts, all clients who'd followed me without needing to be asked. One of them sent a handwritten card. Mara, thanks for always answering before things burned, and for knowing when to walk. I pinned it to my wall. There were no headlines, no public statement, just a final slide, a final signature, and a quietly buried career. The man who humiliated me on screen, who weaponized my salary in front of peers and thought silence meant surrender. He's now a footnote in a PDF that no one reads past page 2. And me? I'm not just back. I'm building, leading client expansion, training new strategists in how to build trust, not dashboards. No titles inflated, no seats begged for, just impact that speaks for itself. Final line? They called it overpaid. Turns out it was underwritten security, and they canceled it, live on screen.